a very long and difficult search. The other problem with finding the Air France 447 was that the pingers that are on the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder failed to operate when they hit the water, as they're supposed to.
Pingers meaning?
There are transponders that send out pings of sound. Ping, like you might remember from the old World War II submarine movies. Where
right.
That
old-fashioned
kind of
radars.
Well, except it's sound. It's acoustic instead of being radars, so you could hear it underwater. But they were trying to locate those pingers because that would locate the wreckage, but apparently those pingers didn't work. But they had a surface search that went on just like they're doing for the plane that crashed off of Malaysia to try to find debris and survivors. And by the way, they searched for 6 days before they found the first bit of debris from that aircraft.
But the first bit of debris, but the complete search went on for what, 2 years?
Yeah, so they had a couple of phases. It went on for 2 years, including the passive acoustic search, and then they brought in active acoustic, where they would put side-looking sonars down on the ocean bottom about 12,000 feet below and try to detect the wreckage. And those 2 years of search were unsuccessful.
And then you came along.
The French asked Metron to take all the information available about where the aircraft crashed, about all the unsuccessful search, and put that together into a probability map, which would indicate high probability areas for the location of the wreck.
And tell me how that probability map works.
Well, in a typical search problem, you have various types of information. You have the last known position, you have the unsuccessful search, you may have positions of debris that you picked up. What you do is there's a mathematical theory called Bayes' theory that you can use to pull all that information together into a probability map, which tells you which areas are high probability and which are low. Another piece of information you can use, if you search somewhere and fail to detect the target, then you can calculate the nude distribution given that failure to detect. And that's by Bayes' rule also. So it's a very powerful method for handling these very complex problems.
And using this probability map, as you've described it, allowed you to do what? I mean, how accurately were you able to pinpoint the likely area where the wreckage was going to be?
Well, the search started in the spring of the third year, and they found the wreck within 1 week of search.
And was this something that you had pioneered, or have these probability maps been used in other areas?
Well, search theory started in World War II, actually, with the British trying to find German submarines and the Americans trying to find German submarines also. So it really came out of World War II.
If it is such a powerful tool, one wonders why it's not employed immediately in these sorts of circumstances.
Most searches are pretty simple, so you don't have to do anything too careful. It's only after you search for a while and you don't find the object that you come to somebody like Metron and say, okay, let's do a full-blown search analysis here. But, by the way, the U.S. Coast Guard does use this theory and implement it in a computer program. They use it every day to find people and boats that are lost at sea, around the United States.
You mentioned with the Air France plane that they found bodies. The search and rescue mission found bodies within 6 days.
Well, that's when they found the first body after 6 days of surface search. Yes.
How clearly did that indicate where the wreckage might be?
Well, we did use that information. We folded that into the probability distribution too, but the way you have to do that, it's pretty complex. You have to reverse drift those bodies to the time of the crash. The problem with doing that is we had very uncertain information about the surface currents. So when you did that reverse drift, you ended up with a very large, very spread out distribution. So in that case, it didn't provide a lot of information, but it's definitely information.
And from what you know, are there similarities between the circumstances of the Air France plane and the Malaysia plane in terms of providing the families with eventually the sort of information that they crave, which is what happened to their loved ones and where did they end up? You think that eventually it could be the case that using the sort of mathematical model that you employed, it could be possible, even if they don't manage to find the debris with a surface search, as you put it, that they may yet be able to find out where this plane ended up and what happened to it.
Oh yes, no, I'd expect they'll be able to do that. And first they'll do this passive acoustic search, listening for those pingers. That would be the best way to find the wreck at this point. If that fails, then it's a more complicated search.
Larry Stone. The pop star Cher has been called many things in her